another round of pitches ready for you. 5-minute presentations and 5 minutes Q&A from our jury. 4 startups in this round. We'll have another round after that, but only 2, the last 2. Then a networking session, a short keynote, and at 5 p.m. we will start our award round. So let's see. We're going to move to Sweden now. Neobiomics provides ProPrems, a high-quality multi-strain food supplement that can be safely used by preterm infants. The team aims to make ProPrems available for all the preterm infants in Europe. And presenting today is Stefan Johansson. Stefan, go ahead and start your pitch.
Thank you. So let's see. No. So here we go. So my name is Stefan Johansson. I'm a pediatrician and neonatologist in Stockholm, Sweden. This was the place in my hospital where something terrible happened 5 years ago. A small premature infant got very unwell. It is a challenge for premature infants to develop a normal flora of gut bacteria, especially since many receive antibiotics. And therefore, food supplementation with probiotics is recommended. At this time, a suitable and safe product was not available. And there and then, I decided we needed to do something. We founded Neobiomics, a startup company at Karolinska Institutet, and we can now provide ProPrems, a probiotic food supplement for premature infants. Our vision is that all premature infants receive safe and effective care by having access to functional, well-designed and affordable products. Our product ProPrems is a probiotic food supplement that is safe, good and easy to use. Manufacturing is rigorously controlled. The composition includes 3 well-documented strains and the formulation makes it easy to use. The European Pediatric Association ESPGHAN recently published a policy paper on probiotics, and ProPrems is practically recommended there. Besides ProPrems, there are 2 major competitors on the market, both of which have challenges. For example, when it comes to manufacturing quality and clinical documentation. Importantly, their compositions are not recommended in the European policy paper I just mentioned. We provide ProPrems in Europe, where there are 500,000 infants born prematurely every year. We focus on the 80,000 infants born very prematurely, that is, born before week 32. And this equals a market potential of 30 million euros per year. We have already made a promising entry to this market. The majority of our customers are yet in Sweden, where we currently reach 75% of the university hospitals. But high-profile users like Oxford and Rotterdam, and recently also Cambridge, have led to that many hospitals around Europe are now considering ProPrems. So far, we have delivered 15,000 portions. And as you can see, we anticipate a good development of our sales, reaching 10 million euros in 2024. Since the foundation, we have reached many milestones. The 2 most important are our exclusive partnership with Christian Hansen, a world-leading probiotics manufacturer based in Denmark, and that we, during 2020, managed to connect and get customers despite the ongoing COVID pandemic. From 2021 and onwards, we will focus on building our sales organization and also start R&D to bring a 2nd generation version of ProPrems to the market. As you can see, we constitute a strong team. with a diverse set of operational competence, medical know-how, and strategic expertise. So to summarize, our product ProPrems fulfills an unmet need for premature infants, being safe, good, and easy to use. And you can also join our journey. In January next year, we will open a funding round of 2 million euros to accelerate marketing and sales. Please get in touch for a more detailed presentation about this opportunity. Thank you.
Stefan, well done and good to hear your story. Let's switch over to the jury and see what questions they have. Who would like to start?
I'd have a question. How do you want to differentiate in the long term from your competitors? Because I think the points that you mentioned, I would naively assume that they are relatively easy to overcome.
Well, I would tend to disagree, because manufacturing high-quality probiotics is not something that is easily done. And that is the great aspect with our partnership with Christian Hansen, because they have the tools to make such a high-end product. So I would say that we are in a rather unique position when it comes to manufacturing quality.
All right.
Stefan, I have a follow-up question on that. To which specific population of neonates would this food supplement be administered? Would it be as a supplement to any sort of feeding, or in perhaps hypoglycemic babies?
Well, our target population is preterm infants, in particular those born before pregnancy week 32. So being like having a birth weight below 1,500 grams. That's our target population.
Thank you.
These
questions.
Sorry?
I think I heard a question somewhere. Go ahead.
Yes.
I was asking something regarding intellectual property, if you don't mind.
Yes.
So is the composition protected? What is exactly protected
No, the composition is based on, independent academic data. So what is protected? Well, through the partnership with Christian Hansen, we have access to their IP, meaning the bacteria, the production setup, and so on. What we own is the trademark, which is a very strong trademark. I can expand on that later. And also, we own the network. Since we are practically a group of clinicians that started this project, we also have a unique direct channel to the users, I would say. So that is part of the beauty of this project.
Any more questions from the jury?
Yeah, hello. What's your market access strategy?
Well, we communicate directly with the potential customers.
Which are? I mean, you mean neonatologists?
Yeah, so neonatal care is a relatively concentrated form of care. So they are not, if this would be a product for GPs, there would be many, many thousands of potential customers. But here we have a concentrated form of care. So we don't, there are not so many targets, so to say, to reach.
Okay.
A follow-up question here. As far as I understand it, it's the manufacturing process that is one of your claims to fame here.
Yes.
Typically, when providing probiotic food supplements in the market, third-party validation or certification is used for the majority of the larger players anyway. So how's your approach different than having a third-party validate supplement?
So I didn't understand your question completely. Do you mean that whether there are a regulatory setup that follows the regulatory standards for producing?
So the question relies on the ability to provide security for the market that this is a well-manufactured product and a safe product. And typically for that use, third-party certification is used. So you get an external partner to certify the manufacturing process.
So I must admit that I'm not 100% sure whether it's a third party, but we have a large collection of certificates for this particular production in place, and Christian Hansen, of course. So we are very confident that this is a safe product.
Okay.
We have to conclude our Q&A with the jury here. They will take a few minutes to match their scores to see what they want to put in for this pitch. Stefan, thank you so much. Neobiomics.
Thank you.
And they make a product for early life to help them get a better start in life. Food supplements made out of necessity, because as a pediatrician, he found out some patients needed a product that wasn't on the market yet. So they developed this program. We're moving on to our next pitch of this afternoon. We're going to look at something else completely again. We can see how diverse the field of medicine and technology is. Pancreatic cancer treatment is extremely costly at the moment due to its relative ineffectiveness and treatment of non-responders. The company Omnigen's solution and their solution, they eliminate chemotherapy treatment in cases where non-response can be predicted, saving cost and unnecessary adverse side effects. From the Netherlands, we have Berry Kriesels. Berry, go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm Berry Kriesels, the founder of Omnigen. So let me start off with introducing Tim. Tim's just been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and as many like Tim, he only has a few limited options now to further choose from and how he's going to proceed. So the most common option is actually the standard of treatment, which is called FOLFIRINOX, of which is known that there's a non-responder rate of 43.5%. His other option would be palliative treatment to spend time with his loved ones and family. Or his third option would be experimental treatment and novel drugs, of which the outcome and the outcome treatment is unknown. So that's why we developed PETA, also known as Pancreatic Insightful Treatment Analysis, actually enabling us to predict treatment response to FOLFIRINOX for responders and non-responders. But first, a little bit about myself. Actually, I'm a school dropout at the age of 15 and started my first company at that age, writing software for pharmacies, which actually enabled me to buy a house at the age of 19. And soon, at a young age of 20, I became a father, and my children actually inspired me to go back to university to earn my degree in bioinformatics. And back in 2015, I decided to found Omnigen to make a positive impact for the world. But I'm not doing this alone. I actually have a great team of problem solvers, a team of bioinformaticians, biomedical scientists, a business developer. So basically, we're not just another startup. So back to the options, back to the door. As mentioned, PETA enables us to make a well-informed choice by predicting responders and non-responders to FOLFIRINOX treatment. So the process is actually quite simple. We start off with a DNA collection with a cheek swab. We offer the DNA data to our created PETA algorithm. The algorithm is able to identify responders and non-responders to FOLFIRINOX treatment. And based on the outcome, we can actually improve the treatment for the patient and also improve the quality of life. And best of all commercial rights belong to Omnigen. Why is this important? Well, it's important for the patient because they have a pre-informed knowledge of what to do. It's important for society because at the moment, 12.5 billion each year gets spent on ineffective treatment of non-responders. And it's important for the hospital because it gives them the tool to advise a patient. And it's also a solid business opportunity. Let me explain. So there's well over 450,000 patients being diagnosed with pancreatic cancer each year. We know that treatment with the standard of treatment FOLFIRINOX costs 60,000 euros per patient. This equals to 27 billion spent each year, of which we know a very large percentage is treated or spent on non-responders, which equals to 12.4 billion euros spent on non-responsive treatment. And this makes actually for a very good market size for PETA as a product. But we're not doing this alone. We actually have a very excellent team of support. Our Chief Scientific Officer, Dr. Van Damme from the Antwerp University, Belgium, Dr. Stubbs from the Erasmus Medical Center, and our key opinion leader, Casper van Eyck, pancreatic surgeon known for treating people such as Steve Jobs, the former Apple CEO. And we have a lead investor who's more than willing to co-invest with any new investor. Do we have competitors? Yes, we do, but we outcompete them on all fronts. How was PETA developed? Well, actually with Eurostar funding of 1.3 million, in collaboration with the Erasmus Medical Center, validated in clinic with 200 pancreatic cancer patients, and with an accuracy of now 90% and still increasing. And as mentioned, we're not just another startup. We already make a revenue and have a healthy net profit last year and next year as well. So what's our roadmap? So we already did our clinical validation. We're going to extend to that with another 400 patients. We're going to optimize with another 600 and going to go for CE marking and compliance in 2022. We're going to follow up with a market introduction with our key opinion leader, Casper van Eyck in the Netherlands, followed by a European rollout and a USA market introduction in 2025. So what are we looking for? Contacts and knowledge on regulatory affairs, contacts with healthcare insurance, and a co-investor willing to raise 2.5 million. I thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to any questions you might have.
Thank you so much. Very well done. We're going to move over to our jury, who I'm sure will have some questions. Who wants to start?
I can start.
Okay, go ahead, Anta.
Great. So, Barry, thank you. Can you expand a bit on the outcome? You mentioned, of course, the overview and the what could that improve generally. But in terms of treatment choice from the clinicians, ultimately, how would this algorithm change that? Based on what is the standard of care today, and how much of that choice of the standard of care can rely on this algorithm and obviously be better in terms of a choice? I'm not sure I understood from your deck.
Okay, so the standard of treatment at the moment is now FOLFIRINOX, which is a chemotherapy, which is a severe form of chemotherapy. And you can imagine if you would be able to predict a non-responder, you would be willing to go for an alternative, say gemcitabine instead, which is also a chemotherapy, but is less severe in its side effects.
And how, what sort of, what is the accuracy of that?
The accuracy of...
How do you get to the accuracy of, how do you get to an accuracy, and what % of accuracy you need to show with your data to have a clinician choose to not put someone on that standard of care given toxicity and safety issues and tolerability into another standard of care with a small, risk of having some possible effect?
Well, we expect that we'll be able to increase our accuracy up to well over 98%, and therefore if we can predict by that rate, and we know that somebody is non-responsive to this treatment, you can go for the other treatments, of which they might be, clinically known to be less effective, but at least they be an alternative to the severity of FOLFIRINOX. But also it enables a patient to make a choice for other forms of perhaps palliative treatment instead.
Any more questions from the jury right now?
Can you speak about your pricing strategy, positioning?
Yeah, the pricing, well, basically, we know that we can do the genotyping, the microarray genotyping as input to our algorithm, and that's as little as 30 euros. So basically, our pricing is taking into account a margin of, labor, which is minimal, the lab cost, which is basically only genotyping, and that basically brings us to a margin of 200 euros per patient if we apply 250 per patient and per diagnostic.
Thank you. Eric, who else from the jury has a question to ask? Betty?
I have one actually. It was a very good presentation. Just a quick question. I mean, what is the commercial strategy in terms of developing partnerships and so on? I mean, who would be your partners in terms of when you are scaling this up, especially when you're going into multiple geographies? Have you thought about it? Have you spoken with them or identified anyone?
Well, our most likely partners in this would be society and health insurance, because now they are the ones confronted with the cost of ineffective treatment.
Any more questions from our jury members?
Yes, Barry, how large was the group of non-responders in the group which you would recommend to undergo therapy?
So the amount of non-responders in the group we would recommend to have treatment. So those, I think, from our data set were 3 of 1 was actually slightly inclusive.
Okay, I hope that that's the question or the answer to your question as well.
If I understand correct.
We have time for one more question. Is that enough for you, Killian, or do you want to have added something?
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, then we have time for one more question if I'm looking at the clock.
Just one final question here. There's a product called BRCA analysis, a genetic test approved on the US market today as a companion diagnostics for this as well. I'm sure you've heard of it. Could you explain a little bit about your approach towards this genetic test and where the difference is?
Well, actually, looking at the strategy, it's quite comparable to the MAMA print of Agendia, which you're referring to. It's also a companion diagnostics. It also applies genetics as a basis. So our business case is quite similar, but the difference in our case is that we also use underlying copy number variation and such in a specific algorithm for pancreatic cancer, and perhaps also applicable to other cancers which are being treated with FOLFIRINOX.
Okay.
And with that, we have to conclude our Q&A with the jury. Barry Kiesels, thank you so much. We heard about Omnigen, the startup that is focusing on people with pancreatic cancer. Yeah, as a patient with that specific type of cancer, you don't have that many options when it comes to treatment. And from those options, a lot of them don't even work depending on the patient's DNA. Now, and this is where Omnigen comes in. They have designed a test to make sure they know before you get treated whether it will work or not, giving the patient more and better choices about their life. We are moving on to our next pitch. We have PanaceAR. PanaceAR. They are joining us, and they are a theranostic pathology platform based on tissue necrosis that improves the quality of life for people who are suffering from a wide range of diseases and conditions. For example, burns, chronic wounds, and cancers as well. Joining us to give the pitch today is Juliette Bordet.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Robert Breton speaking. Sorry, not Juliette joining us today. So I'm CEO of PanaceAR. Thank you for the introduction. So I'm trying to get this clicker to work. Yes, okay, so let me start the pitch. So today our pitch is about, our discussion is about burns. So meet Billy. Billy has 3rd-degree burns and is in incredible pain. Please also see Tim. Tim is also in incredible pain and is suffering from 3rd-degree burns. And as you can see, is also in risk of infection due to a lack of the accurate removal of necrotic tissue, which is required for debridement and also for an accurate skin grafting. So unfortunately, both Billy and Tim are not alone in this fact. In fact, there's 2.8 million burn accidents every year, with over 300,000 hospitalizations and surgical interventions required. And these all require accurate debridement and removal of dead tissue for accurate skin grafting, which is required if you want to prevent infections. So we have a solution for this. What you see here is human skin, which has been immersed in a solution of our biomarker. And what you see is the yellow part, which is the necrotic tissue. And the necrotic tissue is based on the fact that it's been frozen. And the green part is the healthy skin tissue. So this enables the surgeon to accurately see in real time what is necrotic tissue that needs to be removed, and which is something which is lacking today in the process in the theater. So what does this look like in the operating chamber? So what you see here is that the burnt arm, in this case Tim's arm, so our solution is injected intravenously or sprayed on to the burn areas. And then under an near infrared camera and a near infrared light source, we can accurately see where the necrotic tissue lies that needs to be removed in the debridement area. So there's no longer an inaccuracy of the debridement, and therefore that prevents infections. So how does that impact the standard of care? So what you see once Billy and Tim are hospitalized, in the top area in the line there, you see that the debridement is taking place by the naked eye, and therefore also skin grafting afterwards takes place. And what you see then is infection often taking place in over 60% of the cases, and that then creates a repeat of the process. So we envision that using NecroSense, which is our product name, we will obviously have to do this process only once, effectively halving the standard of care and the time is required. But it's not something that we've thought up of. We've been validating this solution across the market. So we've talked to over 85 plastic surgeons. We've been working together with 14 key opinion leaders, working with 7 burn associations, and are currently doing a clinical investigation at the BioTech Burn Center in the Netherlands. There are also 258 burn centers worldwide, which we plan to market with directly. So we've partnered to bring this product to market. We've partnered up with some of the leading, let's say, clinical translation organizations in the world, including Charles Rivers, which is our toxicity facility, and the APFL in Lausanne, which does our biochemical development. So we have quoted collaboration agreements in place to do this clinical translation work for us, which has resulted in a very clear and transparent product development plan, which basically depicts in stage 1 for next year, requiring 1.9 million euros worth of development, which will include GMP synthesis and toxicity studies. And the following year, for phase 1 clinical trial, we will require 2.1 million euros. So we require a total of 4.5 million to bring this to market. So how do we become a market leader? So we will focus on 3 markets predominantly, namely the US, Europe, and Japan. And on the right, you see the transparent or accurate, we believe, realistic sales figures that we see over 6 years, accumulating to 171 million euros. If we were to realize market penetration within the 2 years, we would have a break-even point within those 2 years of commercialization. So what is our business model? Obviously, given the direct relationship we will develop over our direct marketing, we will start with direct distribution model through an e-channel commerce. Then we will, as we scale up, start developing a channel distribution model. And
I have to stop you here, Robert. We've run over time. It was
okay.
5 minutes already, very quick. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you for joining us today. We're going to move over to the jury, who has a first question for Robert.
Yes. So could you talk a little bit about the competition?
Yeah, well, actually, currently we don't see any competitors out there that target necrotic tissue at the moment. There's a couple of biomarker companies, but none of them that have an accurate delineation to this degree on necrotic tissue. But there are some biomarker companies that are out there, but none of them that target necrotic tissue as we do at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Who else in the jury has a question?
Can I ask, please, what's your demonstration so far? So have you used animal models? What have you used for your proof of concept so far?
Yeah, so the picture you saw was actually human tissue models. So we've done both animal models on mice, and now we've moved directly to skin models. At the BioTech Burn Center, we're currently doing the trials and sort of preclinical work and using human tissue as our primary source. And then we plan to go using microdosing. Once toxicity has been taken care of by Charles Rivers, we plan to go to human trials directly. So we're currently using skin models of humans.
I think I heard someone in the background. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. What's your plan on penetrating the market? Because if I understood it correctly, you're selling the stain, but you're also selling the camera setup. Then I can imagine that, you know, we don't really have burn centers somewhere, I guess somewhere in Europe. So the patients come in wherever they get the burn. So how do you think about your market access?
Yeah, so in fact, there are actually burn centers. So in the Netherlands, for instance, we have 3 burn centers. So there are specific hospitals that specialize in burns, and you'll see that the same is in both Europe and in America and in Japan. So there are actually essentially burn centers that specialize in that. As far as the near-infrared camera setup, well, we plan to distribute with the same camera system suppliers. So the same distributors that do the distribution of the cameras would also be doing, let's say, our probe. So essentially, we are a biomarker that is then like the inked is of a printer, if you will, and that is I guess a good analogy in looking at it from that perspective. So we would do essentially first a marketing a campaign to all the burn centers, making them aware of what our proposition is. And once we've obviously got approval in place, we will do direct distribution to sort of penetrate the market and learn from it, and then start working with distributors that also work with the camera suppliers.
Is that sufficient for you, Christoph? Because then I'll move on to the next jury member who might have a question.
Yeah, could you speak about your IP situation?
No. So we actually were very pleased to say that we have got a patent approval as of November of last year. And we've actually also just applied for PCT across Japan and the markets that we indicated. So Europe with the EPA, the US and Japan. So we've done our PCT localization of that patent actually last month. So we started with the PCT applications.
We have about a minute left for a final question, maybe.
Maybe I can have a final question. What may go wrong? I guess, you know, if you think about it from what we have here, what are the things that you think from the risk perspective, assessment perspective?
Well, main area of concern for me is the European, and I'm sure this is something you'll hear from a lot of different biotechs and startups or scale-ups, is the sort of the problems with regulatory and the MDR, which is currently sort of a backlog. None of the notifying bodies that we've been talking to, including BSI and things we were really making going forward, like to get clinical trials and get IND submissions and getting into sort of getting the clinical trials with patients is not so much of an issue. We've validated our solution in human tissue, so I don't really see a big risk there. What I do see is the regulatory risk in Europe. So in fact, we've been really talking to Mediday, which is our regulatory affairs consultancy firm, and they will represent us in the States. And so we think basically our strategy we were thinking of also going first in Europe, but we have amended that and we'll start working with the FDA to get FDA approval, because Europe is just in a huge backlog. None of the notifying bodies are taking on any new submissions, and we want to go for a medical device predicate. So we are a class 2A medical device, and we hope to gain that, obviously, that CE approval. But that's a main risk for the European market, just delays.
And with that, Robert, thank you so much. We will round up our Q&A with the jury. Yes, that was the product NecroSense that we heard about. And burn injuries are, of course, a very complex medical issue. Now, this is a solution that can help improve the healing treatment by looking at necrotic tissue and making sure that that's removed from the right places. The jury is now making sure that they score this pitch as well. And just in the meantime, I can tell you, of course, we have our networking session. That will be an hour. Look at the platform, please do, and make me see if there might be some pending requests that you can approve. We are moving on to the last pitch in this round already. Time flies. We're looking at PhagoMed Biopharma. It's an Austrian biotech company focused on the development of human therapeutic applications of endolysins and phages. And currently, PhagoMed is focusing on bacterial vaginosis, implant-associated infections, and urinary tract infections as well. Please welcome Alexander Belcredi.
Hello, I hope you can hear me well.
All good, yes.
Perfect. So all across medicine, we're moving to targeted therapeutics, except for one area. When we target bacterial pathogens, we're still stuck in the Stone Age. For example, let's talk about Lisa. Lisa is a patient at the Charité in Berlin, and she has a vaginal disease called bacterial vaginosis. In bacterial vaginosis, the wrong kind of bacteria take over the vagina, and that creates a very unpleasant disease. In fact, we can look at the disease under the microscope. This is a vaginal sample that we've taken from Lisa, and the thick yellow that you can see, those are the bad bacteria in the vaginal microbiome that are sitting on top of Lisa's vaginal epithelial cells as a biofilm. Now, bacterial vaginosis is not only unpleasant, it also increases the risks of contracting sexually transmitted diseases such as HIV and the risk of bad pregnancy outcomes. But maybe worst of all, it's incredibly hard to treat. When Lisa takes an antibiotic, this is how it looks like. The antibiotic has difficulties breaking down the biofilm. And in fact, Lisa has been through 20 courses of antibiotics therapy. She's tried probiotics. She even tried self-medicating with acids, but the biofilm is still there. Lisa is not alone in this. Recurrent bacterial vaginosis is a big problem in women's health. 100 million women across the globe suffer from it, which means they have at least 4 diagnosed episodes of BV in 12 months. It constantly lowers their quality of life, and there is no real therapeutic option except taking suppressive antibiotics over a long time, which is really more harmful than good. These women deserve an innovation. And yet, just 10 years ago, we would have given up at this point. We did not understand enough about the vaginal microbiome to make a difference. But today we do. We understand that the yellow that we looked at before is really one group of bacteria called Gardnerella that drives the disease. And that means we can develop a targeted therapy. At PhagoMed, we invented a small protein that has 2 parts. It has a part that binds to the cell wall of the bacteria, and only the Gardnerella bacteria, and it has a part that breaks open that cell wall, which kills the bacteria. And we can look at that effect under the microscope, for example. When we grow the bad and the good bacteria together and then treat it, the bad bacteria die and the good bacteria are completely happy. In a sense, it's a precision vaginal therapy. And we can take it one step further. We can go back to the vaginal sample from Lisa and look at it there. And you can see the effect. Our drug completely eradicates that thick drug-resistant biofilm that had formed on the vaginal epithelial cell. And what's left in red are the good bacteria, the ones that Lisa actually needs to repopulate her vaginal microbiome. Recurrent bacterial vaginosis is an attractive market. There is a big patient number. These patients really have no good therapeutic option except taking long-term antibiotics, which is much more expensive than it sounds. And there's a real lack of innovation, as evidenced by our advisory board. Werner writes the German treatment guideline and has signed up to a board. Jack and Jane write the US treatment guideline and have signed up to a board. Because together, they all believe that this is a true innovation for all of these women. We're now ready to fast track this program to the clinic, but as a company, our vision is yet bigger. We believe that bacteria are the next medical frontier. We can develop targeted therapeutics for any bacteria by predicting how a similar protein could look like on the computer and then developing it further in the lab. And that means we can capitalize on the exponentially increasing knowledge of the role bacterial pathogens play in debilitating diseases such as cancers and autoimmune disorders. We're now ready to scale up our company, and that's why we're raising a Series A. With our Series A, we want to take our bacterial vaginosis program through the first clinical trials, and we want to further expand our pipeline into autoimmune disorders and cancers. We have a strong scientific platform. We have a great team, including 8 PhDs. We have fantastic advisors, including Nell, who used to lead the anti-infectives division at AstraZeneca. But most importantly, we have a drug that can make all the difference for Lisa. Let's work together to make that a reality. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alexander. Well done. Let's move over to our jury members and see what they would like to know. Who has the first question for Alexander?
Do you have any clinical validations on human yet? I know that you said that you want to start human trials, but on any human samples or maybe talk to us a little bit about your clinical development roadmap.
So the sample we looked at, the microscopy image, those are actually human samples. Those are vaginal samples directly from patients with recurrent bacterial vaginosis. And we've tested it's a lysine, the drug class, our lysine now on around 70 vaginal samples in 2 collaborations in Ghent and in Berlin, and using 2 methods. So one is qPCR, the other one is fish microscopy. And we see a very uniform signal across all of them. So for us, that's most predictive for the clinic because it needs to work exactly within the vaginal sample and then everything that's in there. As for the clinic, we're looking to do a phase 1 straight in patients, as has been done for other phage-based drugs. And there, essentially look at the range of biomarkers to help us inform the setup of a phase 2, then that's powered for efficacy in recurrent bacterial vaginosis.
More questions for PhagoMed?
Yes,
yeah,
please.
you said that, sorry, go on, Laura.
No, please, go ahead.
You said that you have a patented technology. So can you tell us a little bit more about that, especially when did you find this, your patent and so on?
So the core of the patents are the substance patents on the classes of lysins that we developed that are specific to a specific bacteria. So for Gardnerella, we filed a substance patent in early 2019. That's now moved into the PCT phase. We have a very positive search report from the European Patent Office, and it will need to start nationalization next year.
Laura, I think you were next.
Yeah, I just forgot. Sorry.
you just forgot. Okay. Is there anyone else on the jury who has a question?
Oh, sorry, I remembered. Sorry, Alexander, can you tell me a little bit more how you envision the treatment to be? Is this a single treatment? It's a continuous treatment? How is it?
So our goal is to have it intravaginally applied as with the standard of care. Goal is to have a suppository that's given for no more than 7 days, ideally once a day. And we're currently running the dose range finding simulations around that to validate that. But we already know that we can go to very high yields at quite acceptable costs, so that at the end a suppository would be, let's say, 2 to 3 euros per suppository, which also, given that it is anti-infectives pricing-wise, gives us a lot of room to maneuver.
Thank you.
Who else want to add anything to that from the jury?
Could you maybe expand a little bit on the go-to-market plans and potential dialogue with larger pharma players to bring this to the market?
Yes, so we've started those dialogues. We're already under NDA with women's health pharma companies because that will essentially have to be taken over by a women's health company down the line that has the sales force to go to the gynecologists and they'll sell it. So as with other deals in this space, for example, there's a drug for recurrent candidiasis, which is sort of a fungal, but it's quite similar. There, the out-licensings were done after phase 2A trials for sort of the women's health pharma companies that bought it on the other side.
I think Laura had another question.
Yes, please. I saw that you're looking for 16 million euros now.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit of breakdown of these 16 million euros and which would they be spent?
Yes, so out of those 16, about 12 million are to bring our bacterial vaginosis program through the phase 1 trials, and that includes all of the CMC and formulation work, but then also running the actual clinical trial. And then the remaining 4 are to expand our pipeline and to move into the next diseases, which are autoimmune disorders and cancers.
Thank you.
Then what would be the overall investment needed if you see, throughout the journey?
So for the bacterial vaginosis program, we believe that we can do an out-licensing after phase 2. So then you need another about 8 million to the phase 2 trial.
We have about a minute left. Maybe another question from the jury, or are all your questions answered? I think with that, we can conclude our Q&A. Thank you so much, Alexander. Yes, we've heard about PhagoMed, and they target the issue that affects a lot of women worldwide and doesn't really have a treatment until now. They've solved the issue and have cracked the code. And of course, this can have an enormous impact on lives of so many women all around the world. Now, the jury will deliberate over these 4 pitches that we've heard before moving on to the next round.